work in various national and international forums. With his rich scientific background, let us invite Dr. Srinath Sridhar to deliver a lecture on data science in healthcare. In the current pandemic situation,
knowledge from across different domains like healthcare, biology, and whichever project they are working on. So they need to have some understanding of that particular domain. So again, why is this talk relevant to you? So with ever decreasing sequencing costs, the size of the data sets in biological studies and the depth of sequence is only going to grow from here on. And naturally, with any field that has access to large amounts of data, like for example, genomics, multiomics, proteomics, etc., you have access to large amounts of data. So everybody is interested to see what data science has to offer to that particular field. I think this is why data science is relevant to you as well. So just consider this data science as another avenue to explore. So I just came across, while I was preparing the materials for this talk, I came across this course called Master of Science in Biomedical Data Science. So they are actually looking for undergraduates or masters who have experience in biology, who want to be trained in data science. So they start off with exposing you to bioinformatics, biotechnology, which I'm sure you would be aware of or learning in your curriculum, and then slowly introduce you to artificial intelligence. Thereby, this course will make sure that you are well-versed in bioinformatics and also exposed to data science. So this is just yet another avenue to explore for you to as one of your career prospects. So this is why I think this is relevant to you. If you are still confused, what I would suggest is, every Netflix series or Amazon series would have a pilot, which is season 1, episode 1. So typically what I do is I go to the first episode to check out how good is this series. For example, Big Bang Theory here, for example, Breaking Bad. If I like the pilot, then I would continue with the series. So consider this sharing session as season 1, episode 1 of your journey in data science. If you like it, I would suggest you to pursue, and I would give you the resources to pursue at the end of the talk. If not, just enjoy the session. Okay, let's move on. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive modeling, deep learning. So these are the terms that are used very interchangeably in the field of data science, and they have their own meaning, and there are differences among these terms. I will just try to explain them using some simple examples. So artificial intelligence is a superset within which we have a machine learning algorithm, within which we have a deep learning. So this is how it is, the hierarchy of artificial intelligence and machine learning is, and the time frame that people have started working in this field. So artificial intelligence, as this quote says, is a science and engineering of making computers behave in a ways that until recently we thought required human intelligence. So here you see the word until recently. So this is very, very important. What is thought of as artificial intelligence in 1950s is just a simple tool these days. For example, in 1950s and 60s, having a computer program to play chess was considered to be artificial intelligence. But now every other smartphone has chess game or even complex games. So these days, what is considered as artificial intelligence? Your Google Home, your Alexa, your Google Assistants, they are considered to be your state-of-the-art artificial intelligence, which can use techniques like machine learning, techniques like deep learning, and other techniques to give you what you want. So this is what is artificial intelligence is. So now machine learning, it's just a study of computer algorithms. So it's just a technique. You could just consider it as some techniques like what you use in your labs, like Western blotting, etc. It's just a technique to achieve what you want. I don't want to go into details about this yet. And what is predictive modeling? So predictive modeling is just to predict what is going to happen next. How to predict the future event based on the current and past event. It's just nothing but forecasting. So based on the known past behavior, what is most likely to happen in the future? That is what is predictive modeling. Okay, now the question is, why all the buzz? Why are we hearing so many everywhere, the machine learning, AI, fintech, deep learning, so on? Why is it the buzz? So before I give you the answer, let me tell you a quick story. Okay, big data is considered to be next frontier in innovation. Earlier, it used to be oil and gas. Now, people consider data as the next frontier for innovation, competition, and productivity. So, Google, there are about 350 crores search queries every day across the world. Could be more as we type. Amazon has about 3.5 crores of active users who are using for various services. Facebook has more than 100 crores of active mobile-only users. Imagine the total number of users. Every second on Facebook, these many activities or transactions are done. So this is just wealth of data that is just there for us to analyze. There are more than 500 crores of mobile phones at the end of 2019. Now it will be even more given all the lockdown and pandemic. Most of the people are working from home using technology like crazy. It would be even more the number. Even in biology, a single sequence of human genome consists about 200 gigabytes of data. That's huge. So my point is there is a wealth of data. In the next decade, it is estimated that 2 to 40 exabytes of data will be generated by genomics research alone. Imagine sequencing. And this COVID has just increased this quantity with all the sequencing happening. How big is 40 exabytes? You see this? There are sharks in this water. Every shark is about 10 to the power 8 of gigabyte. Add all this, that will be 40 exabytes. So it's huge amount of data which requires expertise in data science or machine learning field to analyze them, get insights out of it. That's why I say develop your knowledge in biology, zoology, expose yourself to data science, and you will be the hot commodity in the market, in the job market. Even healthcare data is huge. This COVID is only accelerated this data search with lots of X-rays and lots of other imaging data happening in the last 1 year. So it's increasing 48% annually, and in 2020 it was 2314. Now it will be even more. Okay, so the answer to the question, why is there a buzz? Because there is more processing power these days. The amount of RAM I had on my computer 5 years ago, I have the same amount of RAM on my phone now, hand phone. So the processing power is ever increasing because thanks to Moore's law, which states that we can expect the speed and capability of our computers to increase every couple of years, and we'll also pay less for them. So because there is large amounts of processing power that would enable more demanding algorithms like deep learning, machine learning. Now, deep learning, machine learning was actually discovered or worked upon in 1960s, 70s. But back then, they did not have resources to sufficiently run these algorithms. Now we have the resource. That's why there is huge buzz. So once we have more demanding algorithms enabled, that will drive the demand for more and more data. Deep learning is like a black hole for data. It will suck as much amount of data as it can. More the data you provide, more accurate is your prediction. Thus, there is a buzz of big data wave. So I hope you understand whenever you see why there is a buzz, this is why there is a buzz. And 90% of the data in the world has been created in the last 2 years alone. That is really crazy. It's an old article, but it still is valid. Okay, predictive modeling. I think this is going to be the crux of my talk. It's available everywhere. Weather forecasting, retail marketing, what are you going to buy next? Amazon will know based on your pattern. Web search, what are you going to search next? Google will know. And how to predict the stock price of, let's say, Amazon or Facebook. There are algorithms to do it. Transportation, when is my next bus going to arrive? When is the flight going to arrive? So on. Even the disease risk prediction. What are the risks of me getting diabetes, let's say 5 years down the line? There are tools available to predict these. So predictive modeling is available, is being done in every sector of our works. Now, a quick pop quiz to all of you. I'll give you maybe 1 minute. Think, what is common among these? What is common to Obama, Biden, Singapore Airlines, Shell, the logo Shell here, the Germany team that won the World Cup in 2014? What's common? What do you think is common? Let me look at the chat. Just give me a couple of answers before I begin. Before I continue, I want to see a couple of answers. Come on. Let's make this a bit interactive. Okay, I'll pull up the slide again. So what is common to Obama, Singapore Airlines, Germany team, Shell? Any guesses? Okay, short answer already. Let me check the chat for one last time before I move. Okay, looks like everybody is shy. They don't want to answer. Okay, let me answer the question. So the answer is they're all success. They all are predictive modeling success stories. How, you ask? Shell actually anticipated the failure of their machines. So reduction, thereby anticipating the failure, they reduced their inventory analysis from about 48 hours to less than 45 minutes. That thereby they shaved off millions of dollars of cost of moving and reallocating. Okay, this is an open case study where Obama and Biden political campaign, they actually used social media data to understand who they have to convince and what they have to convince them about. So this is again a brilliant example of how predictive modeling works just from open source social media data. This is very interesting. Germany in 2014, in 2013 or thereabouts, they hired some excellent video analysts, and then they cut down their average position time from 3.4 seconds to 1.1 seconds. This really enabled them into defeating Brazil and Argentina, thereby winning the World Cup. This will be of your interest. I'm going to play a video right now, which Google has developed. So I'm just going to play the video and I'll talk after the video. Okay, so that was Google's AI, the artificial intelligence algorithm directly applied on a microscope that can detect cancers from the slides. This is a very, very useful innovation of Google, which has been already tried out in several hospitals in US. So AI has applications across different sectors like weather forecasting, cancer detection, healthcare, finance, banking, everywhere. So there is no limit to healthcare, and that's why I think this talk is again relevant to you. Okay, let's move on. So even in CGH, we have developed a tool called CAPE, which is COVID-19 AI Predictive Engine. So this tool predicts the severity of pneumonia just from the X-rays. So you feed the X-rays to the machine, it will tell you what is the severity, high, low, or medium. Based on the risk category, doctors can then send the patients accordingly to either ward or for some other treatment. So this is yet another chatbot. This is a different kind of application where we developed a chatbot for migrant workers coming from different countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, China. So we developed this chatbot in their own language, which they can use to communicate with doctors. So you see there are different variety of applications that AI can be used for. Okay, why machine learning? Why not just conventional programming? So conventional programming, what it does is, let's say you have students' marks data, and then you have some rules. So let me open the pointer again. Let's say you have the students' marks data and you have the rules like if the marks are greater than 90, then it is A grade. If it is 85 to 90, A minus, and so on. So you feed the programming with the data and the rules, and then you get the solution. What does machine learning do? It will take the data and then the known solutions, known rules, and then it will create its own solutions and update the known rules with new rules. I know this is confusing. Let's see an example that you love. Let's say there are two people who are interested in watching Netflix. This lady watches documentaries on Tuesdays. This guy, like me, likes to binge watch crime on Saturdays. And she likes to watch sitcoms on Fridays. He watches horror on Sundays. Wow. Now, for conventional programming, this task becomes increasingly difficult because you don't know what all things determine the watching habits of a person. Is the sitcom and documentaries the entire habit of that lady, or are they something else? We don't know. Even if you know, let's say, it is tough to scale the solution to millions of users because each person will have their own habits and you have to write own program for each of them, which is not scalable. That's why, excuse me, machine learning comes in. So the two premises that machine learning will be trained on are based on your past data, which are the movies you're most likely going to watch. What are the people like you? Remember, whenever you log into Netflix or any other streaming platform, you would declare your age and gender. So based on your age and gender, what are the people around you watching? So that's how the recommendations are suggested to you. This is easily scalable to millions and millions of users. That's why machine learning approach is better than the conventional approach when the data set is huge and there are diverse habits. Okay, as this professor says, the latest Netflix series or the movie that you see on Netflix is not being made because a producer had a divine inspiration or a moment of lucidity, but because some data model suggested. So this is very true, and it's changing even the movie industry. As you see, there are many Tamil movies these days releasing on Netflix, very few in theaters. Okay, there are some scary sides to this machine learning and predictive modeling as well. So in 2013, when I was at Institute for Infocom Research, our department, not me, some of my colleagues did a study with a telecom operator. So we were focusing, they requested my mobile phone number, and then they investigated the user, that is my mobility pattern using the cell tower data. So they were focusing on travel patterns from May 2013 to August. So this is what they came up with. So they revealed that the model predicted that my home and work locations are these, based on just the cell tower data, nothing else. I just gave them my mobile number and nothing else. They correctly predicted, and then I had to validate it. Then I said it's correct. Then they predicted top 5 frequent locations I visited. This is just based on the phone number, nothing else, okay? And the data from the cell tower. So they said that these are my top 5 frequent, and I vetted all the 4. 4 were right and 1 was wrong. Finally, these they think are the most commonly used transport routes. Ignore the addresses and the prediction, the exact MRT, etc. These are all the ways of getting around in Singapore. But the point I'm trying to make is there is a scary side to it as well. People could misuse this wonderful technology or the tool for not so good purposes as well. For example, there are companies which have algorithms where HR can detect if you are leaving work, you are going to resign or quit the job, just based on the text analysis and your email analysis, the emails that you send. As you know, there are many apps that request for personal data like Angry Birds, Speechwell. So some apps even record the microphone. So there are some loopholes to it, but they are getting stronger. That's why every data science team or every company that is thinking of building a data science team needs to invest in a cybersecurity team as well. So there's no point of building wonderful models if there are hackers who are stealing it and your models are not secure. So cybersecurity is as important, if not more, than the data science team. So that's how we address the scary side, have a cybersecurity team. Okay, let's move on. How does it work? So I'm not going to go into details. There are a few techniques like supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced. Supervised is when you know, let's say you have 100 patients and you know who have diabetes, who doesn't have. So it's supervised. You know what is the outcome is. Okay, these 50 patients have diabetes, these 50 do not have. Using this data, we will train the model to see who has diabetes and who doesn't have diabetes. Unsupervised is when you don't know the labels. So you don't know, then this would be used to cluster the patients based on their similarities. So not much details, just an overview of what machine learning is about. So supervised learning is majority of the times used for majority of the tasks. So you have a training data set, let's say 100 patients, and then there is a machine learning algorithm, could be anything. So this line y equal to mx plus c is also a model. So, but it cannot fit any curve or non-linear data. That's why y equal to mx plus c is, I think that's one of the first models that we learn in our schools, but that is not effective to fit all kinds of data. So let's say we have 100 patients data and the data looks like this, and then you build a machine learning model. And now we have a reliable learned model. So then you test your model using a test data set, which you haven't seen yet. And then you predict what's going to happen. So let's say you have 100 users who are watching Netflix, and then you have a model and you train these 100, based on these 100 users, you train to develop a model. Then a new user comes in based on his attributes, age, sex, and location. You predict, okay, these are the movies or these are the shows they are going to likely watch. So that's how the machine learning algorithms work. These are the various algorithms that are available. There are many more, and each of them have their own pros and cons, which I'm not going to go into. Just it's not point of this talk. Just to make sure that you're aware that there are many algorithms that can be used. One final talk about the deep learning, and then we'll move into use cases. Deep learning versus machine learning. This is a quite common topic in data science. So deep learning, as I showed you in the earlier slide, it's a subset of machine learning. It automatically finds out what are the features that are important. Like I told you, age, sex, location. Machine learning needs these models to develop, whereas deep learning doesn't need any features. It just picks the features that it thinks are important based on automatically. Okay, let's say this is a feature. This is a machine learning, typical machine learning workflow. So this is the feature extraction that is required by a user to be done, whereas this requires domain knowledge. Let's say we are working with genome data. So I need a biology expert to know which are the important, let's say, genes or SNPs, for example, before I can proceed with the machine learning. Whereas deep learning doesn't require that. Okay, let's say we are going to identify which is a car, if a given image is a car or not. So deep learning doesn't require any other input apart from the image itself. Whereas in machine learning, I need to sit down to say, okay, all those that you see as circle is a wheel. All those that you see as in this shape is a window. And then the car body looks like this and so on. So if you find a combination of these, then predict it's a car. If not, predict it's not a car. So I have to give the features to the machine before it can come up with a prediction. Whereas deep learning, nothing. Just give the image, get the output. So that's why deep learning is very powerful and used by Google, Facebook, etc. for their different use cases. So that's about the background. I hope you are not tired. Okay, the first use case is in your domain, I believe. So it's predicting risk from a genome-wide association studies. I hope you are aware of what GWAS is. Let me just give you if you're not aware. It's an examination of many common genetic variants in different individuals to see if any variant is associated with a trait. The trait can be diabetes, height, even a blue eyes. There are some SNPs which are some genes, some SNPs that are responsible for blue eyes, for example. The trait can be anything. So GWAS typically focus on associations between the SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, and the traits like cancer, diabetes, etc. So then we have to pinpoint the genes that may contribute to a person's risk of developing a certain disease. Okay, if you're not aware of what SNPs are, it's a variation at a single site in a DNA and the most frequent variation. So polymorphism is made up of poly and morph, which means there are many forms. So I think there are about 4 to 5 million SNPs that have been identified in our human genome, if I'm not wrong. This is more for those people who are not aware of what SNPs are. So as you have language in English, you have ABCD, you have ATGC in genetics, and you have words, you have the sequences in your DNA. So this is more for non-biological audience, so I want to skip this through. Okay, what happens if you have a mistake like this? It's still okay, right? You're still going to cut the cake and eat it. This is a very bad typo, but still, we are still okay with it. But what happens when there is a mistake in your genes, in your SNPs? Some of the mistakes can be very, very lethal in giving you cancer or diabetes. Some of them can be nothing. You may just have a, let's say, 6th finger, for example. So it would depend. So it's tough to identify which are the SNPs responsible for different traits. So it's a typical data science problem, I would say. So there have been many articles published in literature which uses machine learning for GWAS to identify a particular trait like type 1 diabetes or stroke, for example. So this is a hot problem in machine learning and in genome science. So in 2015, I think, or 14, I worked with NUS, School of Public Health, where they provided us with some about 1,500 patients data, where 500 patients had stroke and 1,000 patients did not have stroke, they were healthy. And then each of these 1,500 patients had their full genome sequenced, and we were given data at 500,000 SNPs, data of 500,000 SNPs. So what we had to do is we had to build a pipeline. So first the genome data, which is the SNP data, and then we did some prioritization, saying based on the literature which are the SNPs that are highly likely to be correlated with stroke. And then we had a priority list. Then we used some machine learning techniques to train, and then we predict the risk. So this is a typical pipeline that we used to predict what is the risk of a patient, what is the risk of one of these 500 patients to develop a stroke. So see how we are moving from genome, SNPs, genetics to data science. So it's just hand in hand. We try with different levels of different number of SNPs. So when we use only 20 SNPs, the accuracy, the precision, sensitivity are very not high. Whereas when we hit a sweet spot around 2000 SNPs. So these 2000 SNPs predicted very well the risk of stroke at about 92%. So this is again a very good example that you can understand and see how data science, machine learning can be used to solve problems in genome in biology, for example. The next one is one of the use cases that I am working on currently, which is to predict hip fracture from X-rays using deep learning. So this is in collaboration with our emergency department and one of the hospitals in Taiwan. So the aim is to use artificial intelligence to detect hip fractures from X-rays. So the hypothesis is that the AI engine can emulate the clinicians in detecting. So we don't need the clinicians anymore, or if we want to see if the AI engine can predict as well as a radiologist can predict a hip fracture. So there are articles again that have done this in literature. So what is our input? So this is how a typical machine learning model is designed. A modeling design would happen. So the input are the X-ray images from all the cases. The cases are those that are confirmed hip fracture, and controls, those with confirmed hip injuries but not fracture. So the doctor suspected that they had a hip fracture. They went for X-ray, and then the result was no, they did not have a hip fracture. Maybe just a hip sprain or a hip contusion, for example. So the outcome we are interested is to predict if they have a hip fracture or not. It's very simple. So we are planning to use, or we are using the open source algorithms like mentioned these, which are developed by various entities like Facebook, Google. Some of those have developed these, and then they are publicly available for anyone to use for their own use case. Okay, so on your left, this is the actual X-ray. I have just put an arrow to indicate that this is a hip fracture. And on your right, this heat map is generated by the model, where it has predicted that this X-ray image has a fracture, and then it has localized the fracture here. It's a bit off, so we have to improve the algorithm. Whereas in this case, it has predicted the right area to be where the fracture is. So this is how a typical output would look like. So we have used X-ray, feed into the machine, it can tell you whether it has hip fracture or not. And if the patient has a hip fracture, then where is it located? So this is quite useful for A&D doctors, because most of the times these A&D doctors, the emergency doctors, are quite stretched. So it would be useful for them to have such a tool. Okay, there are other use cases which I don't want to delve into detail, but just give a brief explanation, like predicting surgical duration to better manage. This is one of my recent projects where I predicted how long a surgery is likely going to take based on the patient's condition, age, sex, the surgery itself, the doctor, the department the doctor is from, the anesthesia, what is the type of anesthesia, etc. So given all these variables, every patient will have this data before they go into surgery. So given this data, how long is a surgery going to take? This is very useful for scheduling of operating theaters. If the surgery runs longer than what we expect, then the next patient will be waiting, and then the cancellations will happen. Whereas if a surgery takes very less time than what we estimate, then there are other problems that we face. So estimating a surgical duration is, again, a very useful task there. Machine learning can help us. The next one is detection of falls using AI. This one we are working in collaboration with another company, where we have a camera in the ward, and it will be facing the patient's bed. It will try to detect and alert the nurse in the ward to predict when the patient is likely going to get out of the bed and likely fall. So it alert the nurse at their control system maybe 5 to 10 seconds ahead of when the patient is likely going out. So it's a very useful tool, especially for elderly patients who are at high risk of falling. And then to predict the length of stay and discharge type. So when a patient is coming into the ward for admission, how long is he going to stay? How long should I reserve this bed for him? Can I predict it at the point of admission? If I can, then it'll be useful for me to plan other beds as well. And there are many more such cases within hospitals that we can use for. Even in biology, GWAS is just one example that I suggested. Anywhere there is data, tons and tons of data, you can definitely bring in data science, definitely use techniques like machine learning, deep learning for getting useful insights. So what are your take-home messages? So the predictive modeling is a powerful methodology which can address many problems between biology, healthcare, and beyond. Machine learning and deep learning are powerful tools. You don't have to be a theoretical machine learning or deep learning persons. You could just be an applied machine learning expert, where there are ready-made softwares and tools available for you to just plug in your data, run the machine learning model, get your insights, and move on. But going beyond the model prediction is to actionable insights or implementable services is the key. What do I mean by this? Let's say I predict this patient has stroke in the case which I showed you earlier. What do I do? What do I do with that information? How can I better improve his lifestyle? How can I identify the gene that is responsible for the SNP that is likely going to cause him stroke? How can I use this information to act? So these are the next steps that we have to move towards, so that the insights that we develop can be actionable. So let's say this pilot episode, season 1, episode 1, you like it and you want to learn further. So these are the tools that I said you can plug in your data and directly run your machine learning models that you want. And if you want to learn R, it's a good software to learn. It's a good hot commodity to analyze any data. Use statistics, use chi-square distribution, F distribution, whatever, ANOVA. Is a very easy tool to analyze data. And Python, it's being used everywhere. It's such a good source. It's a very powerful all-purpose language. So these are some courses I would recommend, online courses, platform that I would recommend for you to look at. In particular, I like DataCamp, which is focused mainly on data science and data analysts, all the way from the beginner, intermediate to the state of the art. I keep my subscription active all the way so that all the state of the art techniques can be learned. How people use, there are people coming from Google to give lectures within DataCamp to see how they are using state-of-the-art algorithms in Google searches, image searches, and so on. There are useful blogs like Medium towards data science that will also publish time and again useful articles, sharing real-world examples of how they use modeling, predictive modeling, and machine learning in real-life examples. It covers all kinds of sectors like finance, banking, healthcare, even biology. Kaggle is another forum where you have access to plenty of data sets. If you want to get your hands dirty and work on some data sets, this is the place to go to. That's all I have. Thank you for your kind attention. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. If you want, you can raise your hands and ask, or if you want, you can type it in the chat box. I'd be glad to look through and answer. Thank you for your attention again.
Sir, is it possible to depict the origin and end of coronavirus? From Santosh.
There have been many studies that have been done, Santosh, where they predict based on the infection rate in the country, based on the vaccination rate, based on other factors like how dense the population is. They are predicting how long this virus could last. But as with any modeling technique, it has its own limitations because the actual picture is not clear. So I would say end is tough. Origin is easier, but there are lots of restrictions from the origin country. But it's tough to, even the WHO team went to Wuhan to see what is the origin, but they couldn't find. So end is easier. End is easier. As a student or beginner to begin the data science as their career, from where they have to start? Okay, it's a good question, Professor Saminathan. I would say learn your biology, zoology, be the domain expert first. As you're doing that, try to read papers, try to read articles that have used these data in biology or zoology or genetics, how they have used this data to analyze using data science techniques. Read articles. That should be a first point. And then once you read, you'll get useful articles within that article. They would cite some articles, right? So that's how you should start. Once you think you are interested in it, then go through the online courses that I mentioned. That should be I think that should be a logical path you should take. Okay, the next one.
Thank you, sir. Apart from applications of data science in healthcare, may we know which are all the other fields in biology that the data science could be applied? This is from Dr. Binu Kumari.
Thank you, Dr. Binu Kumari. It's a good question. So in biology, anywhere there is a data, any form of data, text, images, video, numbers, anywhere you have this, you can apply. So there is no limit to it. It's only limited by our imagination, I would say.
There is a question from Dr. Bharati, sir. Okay. Does the beginner should be experts in any programming language?
That's a good question, Dr. Bharati. I would say it would depend on your interest. What is your purpose of learning data science? You just want to extract the insights for your data, write an article and then move on, or you want to have a career in data science. If you want a career in data science, then for sure you should have a grip over at least one language, either R, Python, or whatever. R and Python are commonly used. So if you want to have a career in data science, then I would strongly suggest you to learn either R or Python. It's not rocket science, I would say. It's just another language, like how you learn English, or let's say you are now going to start learning Bengali or Punjabi. It's just like that. It has its own grammar, it has its own syntax, and so on. So yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Come on,
Is there
any other questions? Some of you, does anyone raise your hands? It's not a raise hand button.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Velmurugan.
Yes, sir. Sir, excellent presentation. Sir, is it possible for a student who studied biology in the school level to switch over or join in an engineering courses like data science and machine learning in UG level?
Sure. Very, very pertinent question. I think many of my friends who did biology, my close contacts who did biology in 11th, 12th, have, with an aspiration to do medicine, have eventually switched over to either engineering or biology. So it is definitely possible to switch over to engineering. It's just you have to make sure that you have touch with your math. That's all I would say.
Thanks
Mathematics
a lot,
is important.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other participants who has any queries? If so, you can put your queries in the chat box or unmute your mic to clarify your doubts.
Okay, Vishnu, while they
Good morning, sir.
Sorry, go on.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for a nice presentation, sir. Really, we gained a lot more information from your presentation. Thank you very much. I have a question, sir. Can you suggest any platform to learn a Python, sir?
Okay, Basha, Mohammed Basha, thanks for the question. May I know what course are you doing right now?
Sir, actually, I had completed my BSc Biotechnology, sir.
BSc Biotechnology. Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
as I showed to you, Udemy, Coursera, DataCamp, these are the platforms that are typically used to learn. But I would strongly suggest to use DataCamp because I like the way how they teach programming language. They have about 3 to 5 minutes video to cover one concept. Then they have set of exercises based on that concept. And then they have 4 chapters of this. So it's a very neat way of learning for a beginner. I learned lots of programming related stuff from DataCamp. So I would suggest to use DataCamp. If you are very serious in establishing a career or starting a career in data science, please subscribe to DataCamp. Usually around Thanksgiving, which is in November, end of November, they have about 50% discount for annual subscription. So if you're very serious, not just Basha, but anyone, just learn one of the programming languages, either R or Python.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, Basha.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other questions from the participant side?
Okay, my lady. I can flash the LinkedIn. You can reach on LinkedIn. I'll just forward the profile link here in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your expertise about data science in healthcare with all of us. Thankfulness is the beginning of gratitude, and gratitude is the completion of thankfulness. Now, I request our beloved Assistant Professor of Department of Zoology and convener of the conference, Dr. K. Velmurugan, sir, to deliver the vote of thanks. Please, sir.
Thank you. So, very good morning to all. So, the gratitude is the most expressed form of courtesy. I humbly take up the privilege to thank our distinguished president, Dr. Arichami sir, who has been an inspiration and his dedicated hard work which built this great institution. I would like to express our profound gratitude to our Madam Secretary and Director, Dr. C.A. Vasigi Madam, a guiding star for all of us and providing immense support and encouragement for all our endeavors. I sincerely thank our principal, sir, Dr. M. Lakshmanasamy, who is guiding us in all ways. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. K. Murugan, the former Vice Chancellor of Trivandrum University and Registrar of Bardiyar University, who has recently joined as Emeritus Professor in our college and supporting us with his expertise. Thank you, sir. I express my heartfelt gratitude to our today's resource person, Dr. Srinath Sridharan, Principal Analyst, Health Science Research, Changi General Hospital, Singapore, who spent his valuable time amid his busy schedule and enlightened all of us with his excellent presentation on data science in healthcare. Thank you, sir. I'm so delighted in thanking Dr. S. Paulsamy, Dean R&D, and Dr. S.R. Madan Sankar, Dean Academics, for their constant support and motivation. I'm happy to share my special thanks to Dr. S. Binukumari, HOD in charge, Dr. S. Manivannan, and Dr. Bharati, who have been the backbone for this conference. I would like to thank all our faculty members of Zoology Department for their constant and moral support. Finally, I thank all the enthusiastic participants for their interest and cordial cooperation. Once again, I thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir, for expressing your gratitude through your humble words.